When you think of Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, your mind probably goes straight to Marlowe and Kurtz, right? Well, what if I told you that some of the deepest truths in that story aren't found with them at all? They're actually found in the reflections and the blindness of the people standing on the sidelines.
Because, you see, to really get a handle on the profound horror at the center of this novel, you have to look at the characters who, for their own reasons, choose to look away. Yeah, their blindness, it tells us absolutely everything.
So, to help us break this all down, we're going to use this really cool idea, a sort of parable that gets to the heart of the matter, the parable of the Great Mirror.
Okay, so imagine this with me. You're deep in this dark, sunless forest, and there it is, a massive mirror. A mirror that shows the absolute, unfiltered truth. Now, people come to this mirror. Some want to control what it shows. Others fall down and worship its reflection. And some, they'll do anything to cover it up, to pretend it isn't even there. This is our stage.
This brings us to a super important literary term, the foil. Think of it like the black velvet a jeweler uses to make a diamond really sparkle. A foil is a character whose whole purpose is to contrast with another character, usually the hero, to make their traits just pop. So, in our little parable, we've got two key figures stepping up to this mirror. First up, you've got the Russian Harlequin. He's the blind devotee, the guy who looks at this dark, terrifying reflection and only sees shimmering gold. And then you have Kurtz's intended. She's the willful ignoramus, the one who flat out refuses to believe the mirror could reflect anything but pure, beautiful light. Two totally different kinds of blindness.
And what about our main guys, Kurtz and Marlowe? Well, Kurtz, he is the shattered image in that glass. He's the one who stared so deep into that mirror, into the void, that it just broke. And Marlowe? Poor Marlowe. He's the guy left with the impossible job of trying to carry those razor-sharp pieces home.
All right, let's dive into our first foil, the worshipper in rags, the Russian Harlequin. This is a man who seems dangerously, absurdly out of place in the jungle. You have to understand, this guy is a walking paradox. He's described as a literal clown in a tragedy. I mean, just think about that for a second. His youthful innocence isn't sweet or charming. No, it's absolutely terrifying because it has no moral anchor. None. So where does his blindness come from? It's pure, uncritical devotion. He is irresistibly fascinated with Kurtz, seeing this tyrant as some kind of god, a source of divine enlightenment who has expanded his mind. And those severed heads on stakes all around the camp? He just doesn't see them. Or worse, he sees them and thinks they're just part of the cost of genius. And here's the wild part. The Harlequin isn't after power or ivory for himself. He has no ego. He's just there to be a moon reflecting Kurtz's dark sun. But that very purity is what's so dangerous. It's really a form of moral idiocy, and it creates this vacuum where Kurtz's absolute worst atrocities can go completely unchallenged. The warning this character gives us is just chillingly clear. Innocence, when it's totally cut off from a moral compass, isn't a virtue. It becomes a silent accomplice to the darkest of crimes. It's the ultimate enabler. Okay, so let's shift gears. We're leaving the jungle and heading back to the pristine, polite drawing rooms of Europe, where we meet a very different kind of blindness, embodied by Kurtz's fiancée, the intended.
The intended represents what the novel calls a whited sepulcher, is a term for something that looks beautiful and pure on the outside, but inside it's full of decay and corruption. She lives in this protected world of beautiful illusions, completely, willfully ignorant of the brutality that pays for her comfortable life.
And right here is where you see the crucial difference between our two foils. The Harlequin is in the jungle. He sees the severed heads and actively chooses to ignore what they mean. But the intended, the very concept of such horror is outside her reality. It's not even a possibility in her world, which is protected by an entire civilization's worth of those illusions.
And that's the gut punch, isn't it? The horror of the Congo doesn't just stay in the Congo. It's being fed, it's being sustained by the polite silence in those European drawing rooms, by a whole society that refuses to ask where its wealth really comes from. Her ignorance is a crucial gear in the machinery of empire.
So this leaves us with Marlowe. He's the man caught between these two worlds, the world of horror and the world of blindness. He has witnessed the truth, and now he has to decide what on earth to do with it.
The novel puts the question right to us, to you and me.
When you are carrying a truth so devastating it could shatter someone's entire world, do you speak it?
Marlowe makes a choice. He lies. Instead of telling her Kurtz's true, terrifying last words, the horror, he offers a comforting falsehood. He tells her the last word Kurtz uttered was her name. So why? Why does he do it? Well, he's trying to shield her from that same soul-crushing void that completely destroyed Kurtz. His choice seems to suggest that maybe civilization itself is fragile, like a little garden that can only survive if the terrible, wild truths of the world are kept safely outside its walls. It's a crazy paradox. Her survival depends on not seeing, while his depended on being forced to see.
Let's bring this all together now. We'll return to our parable of the mirror to see the final, fractured picture that we're left with.
So each character plays their part perfectly. Kurtz is the one who shattered the mirror by looking too deep. The Harlequin kneels down and worships the dark, twisted reflection in its fragments. The Intended just walks on by, ignoring that the mirror even exists. And Marlowe? He's left with the impossible burden of carrying all those broken, sharp-edged pieces.
In the end, what we realize is that both of these foils, both of these kinds of blindness ultimately fail. The Intended's pale light and the Harlequin's vibrant, crazy colors, they're just temporary distractions. They cannot hold back the immense darkness that Kurtz witnessed and that Marlowe now has to carry with him for the rest of his life.
And so we are left with the novel's central, unsettling question. Marlowe chose a lie to preserve a fragile peace. But is that choice an act of kindness, or is it just a deeper, more insidious kind of corruption? That is the question Heart of Darkness leaves echoing long, long after you've turned the final page.